again, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Nice to see you here. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't already, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave us a comment. Become a member if you wish to become a member. There's going to be a new members video very shortly talking about some exciting changes that are coming up with regards to The Woods as an overarching brand. So yeah, we're gonna start looking at the first of those on a future members video. So do sign up if you're interested in getting some advance notice of that. And there are going to be some new members miniatures in the shop as well. So exciting things to look forward to. It's a very cheap rate of $2.99 a month, and you can cancel whenever you like. So, you know, worth checking out for a month maybe. There's loads of content up there already. Anyway, let's get on with today's general content. This is going to be another look at a White Dwarf from my youth. This is, where are we? June 1997. Let's dive in. Okay, here we are back on my messy painting table. Let me just move my skeletons out of the way. As you can see, I'm still painting skeletons for the big 3rd edition game at Bring Out Your Lead. So that is a work in progress, but they're coming along quite nicely. Quite vivid, as you can see, nice vivid yellows and greens going on there. It's quite cool. I wish I'd maybe painted more of my forces in that green and yellow. Maybe I'll go back and repaint their shields and things. I got these. I had an order recently from Fenris Games, and he sent me these nice stickers. Absolutely sentiments to which I can wholeheartedly agree. I need to try and get them made into perhaps badges to put on my jacket, but that's another job to do. And here's my painting floor tile. Right, let's get that out of the way. Because we're not looking at that today, we are looking at White Dwarf June. I nearly said April there. June 1997. With a John Blanche picture of some orcs on the space orcs, that is, orcs with a K, on the front cover. I might need a bit more space. Let's move these guys out of the way as well. And it's a high elf special apparently, so it doesn't coincide with the cover, but never mind. We had a high elf cover last time. Here's the release of Inferno. I remember Inferno issue 1 coming out. I bought that thinking, oh, this will be a great collector's piece in years to come. Put it in a plastic bag, kept it really neat and tidy. I don't know that it is that much of a collector's piece, is it? Ironically, this issue of White Dwarf is probably more of a collector's piece than Inferno issue 1, but I don't know. The cost of everything is going up, so maybe it's worth slightly more than the cover price now. Who can say? We're going to look at high elf releases a bit later on. Anyway, these are all new releases. Great Crusade. Here we go. Right. A look at the new, that is 5th edition Warhammer High Elves book. This not being the cover of the 5th edition High Elves book. This in fact being the cover of the previous Armies book. But nevertheless, there's the new cover, the one that we saw on the cover of White Dwarf last month. Here are some excerpts from that Armies book. You see the old classic Tyrion model there alongside these new models, which we are going to be seeing more of later in this issue. But yeah, very much like the Army book pages from the 4th edition Army books that were printed in White Dwarf. These are straight reprints from the Army's book. But to give you a bit of a taste, a bit of a flavour for the Army, and inspire you to buy the book. I think they covered the painting of these guys. Does it talk about it here? It talks about each thing a little bit, how basically they have white as a main colour, and then they chose a sort of spot colour to differentiate each unit. Everything just looks a bit chunky for me for elves in this edition. I have got this guy, this Silver Helm leader. He's riding my Forest Dragon in my Wood Elf army. But yeah, I like still the old plastics, and I feel like the older even the 4th edition elves are a bit skinnier, a bit more slender. Grant you that it's harder to cast slender things in metal than it is to cast chunky things, but I don't know, I kind of feel like the elves have got a bit chunky in their in their old age. Obviously they're absolutely ancient, so very old age, even though they might not look it. It's the old painting gemstones, something that really used to confuse me when I was a young painter. The whole idea of putting dark on the top surface seems very counterintuitive, but obviously it's to do with the way that reflected light goes through a transparent gem. Sorry, apologies for my cat. He's on. I've just changed his food from regular Whiskers to Royal Canin. Now he's getting on in years and needs a bit of extra nutrition. And while he used to eat bits of the Whiskers and leave most of the rest of it, he's now eating absolutely everything and can't understand why his food doesn't always have. His bowl doesn't always have food in it at the moment. So he's just emptied his bowl and wants a refill, but he can't have one because he would be getting too much food and then he would get fat. Anyway, this classic tower and gateway here, and in fact obelisk, the classic high elf scenery, in this case looking like a really nice fairy tale castle, pleasant fairy tale castle about to be besieged by orcs. The Oxford Street store. I remember last week we were talking about, or briefly I was talking about cosplaying as Space Marines. Well, this isn't, as far as I'm aware, this isn't a cosplay of a Space Marine. This is just a model of a Space Marine. So it's maybe a bit more authentic proportionate wise. I think it's still a little bit small, judging by putting him against these guys here. Just going to close the door. But yeah, the proportions look better. But I mean, look at the inside, and we've done this before, but look at the inside of this stunning Terminator helmet here. I mean, the detailing is absolutely superb. How come the detailing isn't that great on the outside of the model? I keep, as a prop maker, I keep returning to these and going, I could do a better job than that. Maybe one day when I have the time and the money and the space. So never. In fact, there's that outside of that Terminator helmet. I think it's still in Warhammer World. I've seen it up close. It's a little bit old now, but still a great piece. Really nicely made. Here's a look at Space Marines in Epic 40,000. Of course, we had a look at how to drop an army list for Epic 40,000 last month, and now here's a look at what that army list might look like with Space Marines of various flavours. Some example detachments there. Here we have a look at the categories for the forthcoming Golden Demon. This was the Emperor's Tarot. In the middle of the article, the Emperor's Tarot, I remember getting these cards out and using these. I didn't ever play Epic 40,000, but I used to use these as kind of some inspiration for 40k games when I was playing 3rd Ed. 40k, I had the cards as a kind of not like a strategy card, but just a sort of inspiration for what sort of scenario the game might be. It would be interesting to see somebody do like a grimdark tarot, maybe with some John Blanche illustrations. That might be quite fun to look at. I know Ian Miller's done a tarot, which is quite pretty. Here are the results of the Design a Space Marine chapter competition. And what's fun to my mind about these is that I have actually marked, I don't know if you can see, but I've actually gone through and marked with a pen on here where the ones that I think should have won. So where I've agreed or disagreed with the judges. But what I actually quite like coming back to this is that the judges haven't gone with just like the really nicely illustrated. Like, there's some really beautiful illustration work here, and the overall winner is this is a really nice piece of coloured pencil illustration. Really great. Wouldn't have been out of place in a 1980s White Dwarf, this, but not obviously the current art style of Games Workshop at this period. But they haven't just picked that; they have picked some of the kind of less technically brilliant ones, but nevertheless quite appealing colour schemes. Apparently, tiger stripes were extremely popular, and then there's some crazy stuff in here. So the Taxmen chapter, Attack for Tax. There's the Mums chapter, the terrifying Mums chapter, with their feather duster logo and their motto, "We shall clean." I quite like the Dark Circus guys here. That's also quite a nice, quite nicely illustrated, and the Ether bunnies with their rather savage-looking, not quite a Playboy bunny there, breaking its blood egg. There you go. So, I don't think. I was just trying to remember what the. I thought at one point that the outcome of this would be that whoever won, they would have a tactical squad painted up by the Heavy Metal team in their colours. But I don't remember ever seeing the Solar Guard painted up in White Dwarf. So maybe that didn't happen. I don't know. My own entry obviously didn't come anywhere near any of these. I entered the Terminatrix chapter, which was my chapter at the time, which was metallic blue with metallic orange trim around the edges. And the reason that it was because those were the car body shop paints that I picked up from the local surplus stores for dead cheap that gave me headaches for days on end anytime that I used them. So I don't recommend painting your Space Marines in car body paint. Here is a look at the various female characters in the Bretonnian army list. Rapance de Lyonesse, the first model sculpted by Michael Perry after his accident, after the cannon blew off his hand. So his first left-handed sculpt. I think we'll agree it's far better than most of us could do with our right hand. Yes, very nice, and quite a different sculpt. Not as dramatic, dynamic, possibly, but as a female sculpt, obviously not the kind of long hair and boob armor that you would perhaps expect from fantasy gaming, certainly at this time. Much more kind of conventional boyish armor, or men's armor and a boyish haircut, I should say, which very much suits her Joan of Arc basis for her character. Here are some more knights, along with the mounted and unmounted sorceresses, who are far more what you would expect from fantasy miniatures of this era, with their low-cut dresses and their slim physique and their flowing locks. Here is a scenario theoretically pitting Space Marines against some orcs. But in actuality, when the Space Marines get there, there's no orcs, there is Tyranids. So Space Marines versus Tyranids in the depths of the jungle. And then here are those sample pages. This is Inferno issue 0, so these are not sample pages from Inferno, but sample pages to give you an idea of what Inferno was like. If you knew Inferno, the kind of attempt to do a Warhammer, both 40k and fantasy comic / series of short stories. So this is a snippet of all of those things. There's some short story in here. There's a little bit of Blood Scent, the kind of prologue to that comic strip. There's this really nice drawing of an Imperial steam tank as if it was drawn by Leonardo of Maglio, obviously Leonardo da Vinci style. Dissection of the steam tank. There's that Blood Quest prologue. And then in the first issue of Inferno, there was the Siege of Prague drawing, and the Terror of Death started up, and there was some other stuff as well. I did actually send an idea for a scenario, or not a scenario, a story into Inferno, along with some drawings about a dark elf who found a cursed tomb blade that drained his soul and forced him to kill others. Weirdly, at that point, I hadn't read Elric. I didn't read any of Moorcock until much, much later, so I don't know quite where I got the story from, but I must have heard it somewhere. Anyway, they declined very politely. They said, keep drawing and send us some stuff when you've had a bit more practice. But then they did also launch Darkblade about 2 editions later, so I still to this day wonder whether they took my idea and ran with it, or whether they had just read Moorcock earlier than I had. I think that's probably quite likely. Here is Nigel Stillman and Thomas Pirinen fighting the entirety of the Grudge of Drong, that scenario pack that was released fairly recently, with these lovely brewery buildings, versus the High Elves, of course, because this is an edition largely about High Elves, right? So makes sense. Have High Elves versus Dwarves, those old enemies. So yes, this is a blow by blow. Obviously, quite a quick blow for each. Quick account for each battle, but nevertheless, it covers all 4 battles. Is it? I think 4. 3. There's the epic, iconic, shall we say? Certainly epic Brewery Bash. 4 Battle of Crag Bryn, which is a bit longer. Yeah, 4 battles. And guess who wins? Is it the High Elves, who've recently had a new army book out? Well, apparently, so Filmed Egg Miniatures, I think it was in one of their conversations with Robin Jews, they were talking about how the new army always wins. And Robin was saying, well, it's not just because we wanted, it's not because we wanted everyone to go out and buy the new army. I think I inserted the just because obviously they do want everyone to go out and buy the new army. But it's not just that, it's because it's a new army, so lots of people haven't played against it before. Only the people who've been playtesting it will have tried it out. So it's harder to win against a new army because you don't know what the tactics are yet. You can't tell me that Jervis and Thomas had not played with the High Elf Army book. I'm sure lots of playtesting was going on in the studio, so I'm sure they had come up against High Elves before and had a pretty good idea. And also the changes are not that significant from 4th to 5th. It's tweaks more than radical changes. So I don't think that's the case, but anyhow, whatever the reason, the Elves were victorious. Here's my ticking off list. No, I didn't buy the Illyrian Reaver champion, I don't think. Silverhelm's champion and the general and the mounted hero. I did buy those things, but not the other one. I was obviously keener on some of the High Elf models than I am now. In a twist, it normally goes the other way, that I'm less keen, and then I get keener with hindsight. But no, I was obviously more keen about them then than I am now. There's your Bretonnian females, the what you'd expect, and the perhaps more, should we say, realistic interpretation. There's High Elves. As I say, not a big fan of their big floppy hats and their plumes. I just don't. There's something, I don't know, quite inelegant, I think, unrefined about this era of High Elves. They don't strike me as being quite as noble, perhaps, as the previous iterations of elves. But Maybe that's just me. It could be talking nonsense. Probably am talking nonsense. Definitely am talking nonsense. But what's good about this era is that they decided to make the lances the entire arm, so that you could pose it slightly differently, and you didn't have to worry about the connection at the wrist. That first High Elf cavalry release, where they had the black plastic lances that were attached at the wrist to the models. What a nightmare to join those and try and keep those joined together. Absolutely nuts. And then on the back we've got High Elves versus Dark Elves, Dragon versus Dragon, Hero versus Cold One, Bolt Throwers versus Bolt Throwers, Cavalry versus Dark Elf, Cold One, Cavalry. Yeah, the complementary yet contradictory armies. So there we go. That was June 1997. Next month we'll be looking at July 1997. Hope you'll join me for that. Take care, and I shall see you again.